all Walmart Chinese-made products, you're still getting Walmart jobs for the local economy.
But only
you're
a
getting
percentage of that would
corporation.
actually be going back into American, like.
Much larger than if you store $20 million in offshore accounts.
Yeah.
Well, I think there might be, eventually, I'm sure this has come up, I don't know if big business will allow it, but to me it seems like, I mean, a lot of countries are moving their bases and their stuff over to other countries simply because production is cheaper in China and Taiwan and all this other stuff. I mean, they're still selling their products here and we're still providing that money, but the base of it is going straight out of the country. Like, it doesn't even touch bank accounts in the US anymore.
What about
I think there
the
might be.
global perspective, though? That,
Yeah.
You know, that national boundaries don't really mean anything in terms of international economics.
Well, I guess
International.
they do mean something because there's sort of like this loophole, you know, like, if they didn't mean anything, then it
Good.
wouldn't
Very
mean
nice
anything,
stuff.
but it does mean something because you can go there and pay them 25 cents an hour, you know.
So like internet corporations?
Yeah.
I mean, they're based in necessarily like America, if that money doesn't necessarily go to Americans, but
Well,
I mean,
they're
if
not,
people shop
they don't
online.
taxes on it. That's
Yeah.
one thing too, is, like, to me, I've heard a lot of, I have a few friends in econ and finance majors, and they kept talking about, like, taxing, not necessarily, because they're not I think the way they explain it to me is when they, like, take away Walmart. Like, they have all these stores that make all this money here, but they're like home base or whatnot, where the corporation is like, let's just say it's Taiwan. Well, a large portion of those profits aren't taxed here, because technically they're based in Taiwan, but the money is still made here. So they were talking about taxing money it doesn't matter if it's based here or if it's a foreign company or anything, like if you make money here, you have to pay taxes on it. I've heard that idea. I have no idea how that would work, if it's a viable solution, but I keep hearing that from different econ people. It wasn't in his book, but it was just kind of a tangent off the same subject.
What vision, do we share Reich's vision about what we want? Probably not, right? And, I mean, I know there's some of you who are.
John's not here.
I know, John's not here. Can you carry him? I mean, what's wrong with, I mean, I have some problems with thinking that the motivation for everything is wealth. You know, and yet I don't wanna sound like a.
I personally think people need to adjust their expectations. Like, I don't think of the American dream as making millions. I think of the American dream as having, you know, a house, a family, like, not indebted completely, just, you know, like living a basic life. I don't aspire to make millions. That's not reasonable. Like, I know I'm not gonna be a millionaire. So I feel like people need to adjust expectations.
But I don't
Because
know
if
if a lot
everyone's a
of
millionaire,
people.
then inflation's probably
But
going
can-
crazy.
What about the people who can't even buy a house who have to 40% of foreclosures and they're all underwater in Nevada? That's the thing, is like the middle class, they can't even
Yeah, they
achieve
can't
that
even-
like lowered expectation of American dream right now.
They're just trying to steal.
See, the other thing is, I don't think everybody wakes up and is like, I'm gonna be a millionaire by the time I'm 70. I don't think so. I think a lot, like, for me, it's the same thing. I don't wanna be a millionaire. I just wanna have a house and be able to provide for a family. But even doing that right now is incredibly difficult, and it gets even harder if you're a woman or a minority. I mean,
Or a
it's
young
just-
person, too.
Or a young person, yeah. It's just, I think it's become so stratified that even just getting to that bare minimum American dream is a lot harder than it was 30 years ago.
I feel like we're here now though because people were living outside of their means, taking out loans like that they can't pay back to have houses that they know they can't afford, having cars they can't afford. And
why
not
do
living-
they-
Why did we had to do that because we have to live
Why would
with
they
the
allow you to do
rich?
that?
Why do you have to keep up with this?
And not only that, because they tell you you do. Because they
And not
say,
keep up with the rich, but keep up with the economy.
yeah, they
Yeah.
say, you want the American dream, don't you want that house?
Well, don't be brainwashed.
Don't you want that car?
Sorry.
But then they go and tell you, oh, you don't
But
wanna
they
own a house,
want
you
you-
rent a house, you pay more.
Yeah,
And
and that's
then-
true, but I feel like there needs to be some personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Research your loan,
There should be.
research what you can afford, like what you can
But
reasonably
you're
pay
making
off.
an assumption.
Like,
You're making an assumption that people. I don't want to say are that smart.
Is
like,
it unreasonable to
Yeah,
assume that people are gonna think in their best interest?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
But if they're uneducated.
Yeah, it is a little
Yeah.
unreasonable.
They can afford to do it, they're just like, I guess.
let's
They have-
But
say,
yet you're
Can
going to
we-
other
Of
banks
course they're
that
gonna
do the
do it.
same irresponsibility, but it's
That's a
different
different
because,
issue.
because they're too big to fail.
That's a different issue.
Well,
Yeah.
not really, because that same bailout money could have gone to all those people with
Stimulus
the
packages
loans
though,
and
like
the
unless
cars.
you give people like a debit card with an expiration date, people are gonna pay off their debt. They're not gonna go spend the money, they're gonna pay off what they already owe, which isn't gonna stimulate anything.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, that's the problem with stimulus money. It's not being put in the economy, it's being, like, used on debt. Like, if you,
But I
The same
think,
thing.
I mean, I feel like there's different ways the stimulus could, like, if you put it on a debit card and say,
Well, that's-
use this by the end of the year, and if not, you lose the money. I feel like that would be a stimulus, that people would go out and spend.
is there something a little off, though, with us? I mean, I'm sure that you are right about the fact that there are some people who think they need a house that's way bigger than they can afford.
You have no
That,
chance.
you know, in other words, there are some fools, and they no doubt contributed to this, but there are also some people who are doing what Americans have been told to do at least since the end of World War II, which is to get a little house, to not throw your money away paying rent all the time. And, you know, I heard a NPR interview, of course, it was a year or so ago, with a poor woman from West Virginia who had some little cinder block bungalow that was, you know, her house. And she got sold a bill of goods about refinancing it, and it was, you know, a stack of hundreds and hundreds of pages of stuff, and the people who wanted her to refinance, you know, said, oh, sign here, and this is what it means, and there was no way she could read it. There was no way anybody but a lawyer or a real estate expert could read it and understand it. And she signed it, and next thing she knew, you know, her interest payments ballooned after 6 months, and she lost her house. So, why are we, why do we go to, for example, that woman, or to, you know, a working class family that wanted a house and bought a house for $85,000 that, and financed it realistic, you know, say $200,000 house in 2004 that is worth $95,000 in 2009. And so their equity is lost, and they know that if they spend the next 30 years paying it off, they will not manage to, you know, they'll be paying twice as much as the house is worth. Why are we angrier at those folks than the people that took their mortgage?
and knew that it was a bad
And-
loan, and that's where my problem is.
Well, I
There
don't-
may be people that are responsible and did live outside of their means, but they had banks feeding them these things saying, you can buy a loan, you can totally do it,
Well, and it
it's
wasn't-
not a big deal, and all these things, and they knew that these loans were gonna go bad. And that was the problem. Why are the banks less responsible for selling people
The big
things that
banks
aren't
are,
correct
but
than the
I
people
don't-
that didn't research their loans? Like, how are you gonna research your loan if you're a minority and you're barely speaking English?
No.
Well, and the
I
one
will
thing
say
too, though,
that-
is you're lumping all banks together. Like, there was 3 major banks. There was Citibank, there was Freddie Mae, and Freddie.
But that's all we
Freddie-
needed.
But the problem is a lot of those ones was they were reacting to FDIC, and they were reacting to the economic boom that was happening. At that time, those houses were appraising.
But
at
they
that
got
level.
but they got the appraisals by paying the appraisal company.
No, you can't, okay,
yes.
appraisals you can wiggle a few percentages. But you
Not
can't.
appraisals, they were okay, have you ever seen Inside Job?
No.
Okay,
You gotta
watch
see
it.
it.
These companies,
It'll blow your mind.
they have,
margin
seriously,
call.
they have these companies that rank the banking systems. And they give you a 4-star ranking if you're a very secure bank that only loans out, like, you know, money that's almost 100% gonna be paid back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, these companies that were ranking these 3 major banks, they were giving them all 4 stars. Even though the loans that they were giving out were like, you have a 2% chance of getting this money back.
And
But I
then-
think
And
the government almost, at least the Nevada Supreme Court, they came out with a ruling about 3 weeks ago with all those bad loans that you're talking about. It's because these banks, or I don't know, I haven't done any research, that they sold all these bad loans, and they've sold the loans to China, they sold the loans to Taiwan, and they sold the loans so many times.
Yeah.
Well, Nevada said, all right, fine, you've sold these loans and you know, if you don't have the original loan documents, you can't repossess the house. You cannot do
And they're
foreclosures.
doing that now, and so
But
some
there's
people's homes
some-
are safe.
Well, no, they, actually,
but-
it's a retrospect law, because they said, because that was
I
the
think-
law
But
that
then
was
that's
in.
not the,
Kind of
that's not the
missing
point.
the point.
Yeah, the point
I-
is the responsibility. And then the companies who ranked them came back and said, well, these rankings were more of opinion-based rankings. It's like, oh, okay, well, now that I know that, I would have gotten a loan. Like,
But
so.
who are you gonna get a loan from? There was
But
a
wait,
few
wait,
biggest
look,
things
is
in
it,
the
I
thing.
think we're missing something, we're missing forest for the trees or something, you know, in the details. And I wanna go back to Marx, although we haven't read too much of his economics, but the idea that money is an exchange value, and it is a quantity, not a quality. And I guess what I'm to bring that home to us, what I'm saying is, you know, I know I've been saying to you guys, well, what do you want? Do you want to get super rich? Do you really want to identify with these people who are terrifically successful? There is a book, a novel, I don't know if any of you read it, it's pretty recent, it's called The Privileges. I need to get the name of it. I don't know it. It's wonderful and hilarious. It's very complex. It's not hilarious, it's tragic. But it's about a young couple